Hey everyone, good morning. Happy New Year. It's January 2nd, 2021. This video today is brought to you by BioTrust. Research shows us 50% of the US population make New Year's resolutions, but fewer than 10% will keep them after the first few months. In fact, 27% of people will have given up on their goals in the first week, 31% in the first 2 weeks. Just over half will survive the first month, which is how I feel about what's coming on January 6th. One of my resolutions is feeling and looking my best as I try to catch up on sleep, which hasn't been working out so well for me lately. But you guys can go to healthwithbeans.com and get this amazing collagen, which really makes a big difference. It's 51% off today. You can look and feel your absolute best. If you're on YouTube, you can click the link in the description box to get there. It's healthwithbeans.com. Thank you so much to BioTrust. I wanted to go over a couple things with you guys today, get right into it here. Yes, we still have election stuff going on, and there are so many moving parts and pieces to this. I am working really hard to keep track of everything. I'm trying to put together with the team who's been doing a stellar job, just kind of like a where are we before I travel to DC this week. I know all of you guys have your sights focused there. There's also a ton of other stuff going on in addition. So I wanted to go over today with you this New York bill that's been making the rounds. But I wanted to talk to you too about the fact that this bill that we're about to talk about in New York is not new. It is a reiteration and sort of a change from the previous versions. But even Florida, guys, in July, I reported back in about a decades-old Florida, I guess, statute, for lack of a better word, that you can be vaccinated by any means necessary if they decide that they can do this. This was added into law in 2002 in Florida when Jeb Bush was governor, and it hasn't been removed or amended since it's been entered. It has been there for 19 years, and has just now come back up to the forefront. And I contain this piece that I wrote, which is linked again in the description box if you're on YouTube, contains the legislation in question. And I took out the actual portion of it that explains this to you. So there are states all over the country with draconian, crazy laws like this, and you don't realize it because you're busy living your life and people weren't paying attention, and this is what happens. So moving on from that, let's go to the bill that is sitting in front of the New York State, or I think it's, where are we here? We are waiting for it to be delivered to, or we're waiting for it to be voted on and passed. It hasn't been calendared yet, but it's in committee right now. And that's where this bill seems to have remained every other time they've tried to have advanced it. But this is where it's at, and it's in committee right now in the Health Committee. And there have been several iterations of it going back all the way to 2015. But I wanted to go over this because people are quick to dismiss things as conspiracy theory. This bill, given the COVID nightmare, if you were from New York and you saw what went on in Times Square for New Year's Eve, you understand what I mean. As a former New Yorker, watching Bill de Blasio and his wife dance in an empty Times Square where the rest of New York was scared into submission sitting in their houses was just the ultimate act of it's just gross. So here we are. It's short. We're going to read it together. And then if you live in New York, get your little hiney on the phone. Make sure your friends know about this because I don't think anybody would feel comfortable with this. It says an act to amend the public health law in relation to the removal of cases, contacts, and carriers of communicable diseases who are potentially dangerous to the public health. Now, you know New York has been doing this ridiculous contact tracing because if you've flown into New York over the past several months, you've been basically asked to show your papers, document where you're going, give them your information so they can follow you around and make sure you don't leave the destination you were going to at any point in time within the 2 weeks that they require that you stay there. The people of the state of New York, represented in Senate and Assembly, do enact as follows. Now, I doubt that many New Yorkers would agree to something like this, but Removal and detention of cases, contacts, and carriers who are or may be a danger to the public health. 1. The provisions of this section shall be utilized in the event that the governor declares a state of health emergency due to an epidemic of any communicable disease. We saw how easy it is for him to do that. Upon determining by clear and convincing evidence. Somebody commented underneath my tweet where I shared this. Clear and convincing evidence was the Steele dossier to these people, okay? This is who determines what is fact and what... The fact checkers. This is it, the language is just terrifying. Hold on. Upon determining by clear and convincing evidence that the health of others is or may be endangered by a case, contact, or carrier. That could mean you're in a store, somebody is diagnosed with COVID, you're a contact because you were in the store with them for over 15 minutes, and then the government willy-nilly decides that you are an endangerment to other people. Or a suspected case, contact, or carrier. Suspected. We think they may have been near someone who may have been near someone who may have X. In the opinion of the governor, after consultation with the commissioner, may pose an imminent and significant threat to the public health, resulting in severe morbidity or high mortality. The government or his or her delegee, including but not limited to the commissioner or the heads of local health departments, you trust those people, may order the removal and or detention of such a person or of a group of such persons, i.e., any Jewish folks in the city who decide to get together for their religious holiday, by issuing a single order identifying such persons either by name or by a reasonably specific description of the individuals or group being detained. So they can literally say, oh, that guy was wearing blue jeans and a hat, and so are you. Come with us. Such person or group of persons shall be detained in a medical facility or other appropriate facility or premises designated by the governor or his or her delegee and complying with subdivision 5 of this section. A person or group removed or detained by order of the governor or his or her delegate pursuant to subdivision 2 shall be detained for such period and in such manner as the department may direct in accordance with this section. Now just wait. It gets better. It gets better. A confirmed case or a carrier who is detained pursuant to subdivision 2 of this section shall not continue to be detained after the department determines that such person is no longer contagious. Now, knowing what we know about the PCR test, who's to say they don't just keep changing the specificity or cycles on the test and just keep you detained against your will for as long as they want? This is government gone rogue. And again, since 2015, they have been trying this. This is not something that they just decided this year. A person who is detained pursuant to the subdivision 2 of this section as a contact or confirmed case or a carrier shall not continue to be detained after the department determines that the person is not infected with the disease or that such contact no longer presents a potential danger to the health of others. A person who is detained pursuant to subdivision 2 of this section as a contact of a suspected case shall not continue to be detained if after the department determines with the exercise of due diligence, because the government is constantly doing its due diligence, that after the suspected case was not infected with such a disease or was not contagious at the time the contact was exposed to such individual, i.e., whoops, we made a mistake, we took you by accident. I can't believe... I'm glad that people are actually paying attention to this stuff now. After the department determines that the contact no longer presents a potential danger to the health of others, or after the department determines that the contact no longer presents a potential danger. I read that already. A person who is detained pursuant to subdivision 2 of this section shall, as is appropriate to the circumstances, A, have his or her medical condition and needs assessed and addressed on a regular basis. Oh, gee, thanks. And be detained in a manner that's consistent with recognized isolation and infection control principles in order to minimize the likelihood of transmission of infection to such persons and to others. Now, I just want to stop for a second here before we get to point 6. I think that they were releasing prisoners from prison to be out in society because they didn't want them all glommed up in the prison anymore, susceptible to COVID. Where do you think they're going to put these folks they round up? Just curious. When a person or group is ordered to be detained pursuant to subdivision 2 of this section for a period not exceeding 3 business days, such person or member of such group shall, upon request, be afforded an opportunity to be heard. Oh, well, thank you so much. That is so kind of you, Ministry of Truth. Appreciate it. If a person or group detained pursuant to subdivision 2 of this section needs to be detained beyond 3 business days, they shall be provided with an additional commissioner's order pursuant to subdivisions 2 and 8. If they request release, the governor or his delegate shall make an application for a court order authorizing their detention. In other words, if they demand to be let go, then they'll go to the court and get some kind of paper. So they're basically arresting people and rounding them. I mean, this is what this is not an exaggeration here, guys. If you complain and you say you want to be let go, they'll go to the court after the fact to get something to keep you. Unless it's a holiday or a weekend, then you're stuck. After any such request for release, detention shall not continue for more than 5 business days in the absence of a court order authorizing it, i.e., they can keep you against your will for up to 5 days if they don't have a court order. Do you understand how draconian and absolutely tyrannical this is? The governor or his or her delegate shall seek further court review of such detention within 90 days following the initial court order authorizing the detention. So up for 90 days, and thereafter within 90 days of each subsequent court review. They can keep you for 3 months at a time. A copy of any detention order of the governor or his or her delegate issued pursuant to subdivision 2 shall be given to each individual. However, if the order applies to a group and it's impractical to print out individual copies, it can be posted in a conspicuous place in the detention premises. Any detention order of the commissioner issued pursuant to subdivision 2 shall set forth the purpose of the detention and the legal authority under which the order is issued, including the particular sections of this article or other law, a description of the circumstances and behavior of the detained person constituting the basis for the issuance of the order, i.e., you were cavorting at a church mass and we decided that wasn't good, so we've taken you from your family and put you in a cell somewhere. A notice advising the person or group being detained that they have a right to request release, including instructions on how that request should be made. You can ask us to be let go, but we can keep you for up to 5 days. And then if a judge in New York decides that we can keep you for 90, we will. Good luck. This is literally what this says. The less restrictive alternatives that were attempted and were unsuccessful, and or the less restrictive alternatives that were considered and rejected, and the reasons they were. Who is getting together in a back room and deciding those things? Do you guys see the problem? I'm sure you do. I had to read this to you. This is New York State. If you live in New York and you think that they're going to, if you think you have a chance, get on the phone and get on the street. A notice advising the person or group being detained that they have a right to request a release from detention. I already said that. A notice advising the person or group being detained that they have a right to be represented by legal counsel. Oh, how kind. And that upon request of such person or group, access to counsel will be facilitated to the extent feasible under the circumstances. We can't afford to give you guys all attorneys. Sorry. They have no constitutional rights anymore. I mean, a notice advising, A notice advising the person or group being detained that they may supply the addresses and telephone numbers of friends or relatives to receive notification of the person's detention, and that the department shall, at the detained person's request, and to the extent feasible, provide notice to a reasonable number of such people that the person is being detained. Do they take your phone? So you mean they're detaining you and taking your phone? Like you're going to jail. You can't make phone calls? They're taking your telephone and they're saying, we'll contact folks for you. Don't worry. We'll take care of it for you. It's good. In addition, there's some more. It gets better. Worse. In addition, an order issued pursuant to subdivisions 2 and 7 requiring the detentions of a person or group for a period exceeding 3 business days shall advise the person or group being detained that the detention shall not continue for more than 5 business days after a request for release has been made in the absence of a court order authorizing the detention. Advise the person or group being detained that whether or not they request release from detention, the governor or his or her delegate must obtain a court order authorizing detention within 60 days following the commencement of detention, and thereafter must further seek court review of the detention within 90 days of such court order and within 90 days of each subsequent court review. This is in perpetuity. And advise the person or group being detained that they have the right to request legal counsel be provided. Blah, 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 blah. A person who is detained in a medical facility or other appropriate facility or premises, which they don't define, shall not conduct himself or herself. They're gendering. The New York State Senate and legislative body is gendering. In a disorderly manner, and shall not leave or attempt to leave such facility or premises until he or she is discharged pursuant to this section. I.e., don't try to break out, sucker. The provisions of this section shall not apply to the issuance of orders pursuant to 1121 of the New York City Health Code, which I have to look up. In addition to the removal or detention orders referred to in this section 2, and without affecting or limiting any other authority that the commissioner may otherwise have, the governor or his or her delegate may, in his or her discretion, issue and seek enforcement of any other orders that he or she determines are necessary or appropriate to prevent dissemination or transmission of contagious diseases or other illnesses that may pose a threat to the public health, including, but not limited to, orders requiring any person or persons who are not in the custody of the department to be excluded, to remain isolated or quarantined at home or at a premises of such person's choice that is acceptable to the department, and under such conditions and for such period as will prevent transmission of the contagious disease or illness, to require the testing or medical exam of persons who may have been exposed to or infected by a contagious disease, or who may have been exposed to or contaminated with dangerous amounts of radioactive or toxic chemicals. To require an individual who's been exposed to or infected by a contagious disease to complete an appropriate prescribed course of treatment, preventative medication, or vaccination. To require you to complete their course of treatment, medication, or vaccination, i.e., you will take this medicine we are prescribing, and you don't have a choice in the matter. You will take this vaccine, peasant, because we say so, including directly observed therapy to treat the disease and follow infection control provisions for the disease, or to require an individual who's been contaminated with dangerous amounts of radioactive materials or toxic chemicals, such that said individual may present a danger to others, to undergo decontamination procedures deemed necessary by the department. Such person or persons shall, upon request, be afforded an opportunity to be heard, but the provisions of subdivisions 2 through 11 of this section shall not otherwise apply. They shall not be construed to permit or require the forcible administration of any medication without a prior court order. Without a prior court. Don't worry, guys. They need to get a court order to do this stuff. Do you have any faith that the court is not going to start mandating this stuff? This bill, again, it's sitting here in committee. In the little committee of the Ministry of Truth, just waiting to make it to the floor. Do you think that it'll get there? The Health Commission in New York State, where The governor wrote a book about himself and how great he handled the coronavirus as he killed people in nursing homes, allegedly. Yeah, let's see what's going on in chat, and it's going to look a little weird for a second here. I don't see anybody in chat. Well, that's interesting. That's okay. I'm just saying. This is what we're dealing with here. So I wanted to go over this with you. I want you to make noise about it. It's up to us to do so. It's up to us to do so. If you live in New York, the bill is linked below. It is also on my Twitter account. Find it. Call the people involved here. Make a stink. Get loud. If you don't live in New York, take a look at what's going on in your state legislatures. Take a look at what they're doing. Again, decades-old Florida legislation. Vaccination or treatment by any means necessary. It says this. Here's the subsection. In Florida. I wonder if DeSantis even knows about this. Ordering an individual to be examined, tested, vaccinated, treated, isolated, or quarantined for communicable diseases that have significant morbidity or mortality and present a severe danger to public health. Individuals who are unable or unwilling to be examined, tested, vaccinated, or treated for reasons of health, religion, or conscience may be subject to isolation or quarantine. If the individual poses a danger to the public health, the state health officer may subject the individual to isolation or quarantine. If there is no practical method to isolate or quarantine the individual, the state health officer may use any means necessary to vaccinate or treat the individual. And don't mind that alarm going off downstairs. Somebody has to take their medicine and they're just not shutting it off. They're not paying attention to it, if you can hear it. So there's that, guys. I read it to you. Plain English. This is what they wrote for the good of the people of New York State. For the good of the people of New York State. Right? You guys have all lived through this for the past year. You understand. Now, let's get on. This is floating around out here. Maricopa County Treasurer Flora resigns in disgust with Board of Supervisors. There is a letter at the bottom of this article. Let me start by thanking the taxpayers of Maricopa County. He goes through some of the things that they have horribly done to their citizens that he's been working through. This year, I respectfully and urgently requested the governor of the great state of Arizona and our legislature help taxpayers during these difficult times by calling a special session in order to address tax issues, including at no cost extending the deadline to pay the second half of 2019 property taxes to June 2020. The sad and disappointing thing is that people are dying, businesses are shutting down, wages lost, families straining to put food on the table, and my request fell on deaf ears. Listen to this one. Last year, I saw an injustice happening to Mr. James Berner, a disabled veteran whose home was illegally put up for auction over a $221 delinquent tax. The sheriff illegally seized his $36,000 home for a $221 delinquent tax, putting him in jeopardy of being homeless. If government was unwilling to correct it, I was. After a hard-fought legal battle, Mr. Berner had his whole home restored to him. Oddly enough, the sheriff took credit for saving the home. But that is the corrupt environment I have come to expect. He goes through some more of the things he have done. And then at the bottom, he says, all of our accomplishments went unappreciated and ignored by the board. It has also come to my attention that the incoming treasurer cannot legally be sworn in until January 11th. And therefore, according to the Arizona Constitution, my term would extend until that time. It's unacceptable to me for several reasons. First, the liability bond protecting me expires December 31st, and I would become personally liable for any loss. Smart man. Second, the political environment at the county has become so toxic. I have no desire to endure further abuse. Finally, I intend to participate in the recall of the Maricopa County Board of Supervisors, which puts me in direct conflict with county government. For these and other reasons, I resign my office of Maricopa County Treasurer effective on the statutorily prescribed date of midnight, December 31st, 2020. Now, I don't know what is election related in here, but it appears that the recall of the supervisors who are ignoring a subpoena by the state to turn over machines has something to do with it. That's not specifically stated in the letter, so I just wanted to make sure that's clear. And lastly, there's a series going up at uncoverdc.com by Stu and Larry. Was the Russia hoax a Chinese operation? It is a 4-part series that started with this part here, The View from 2016. Guys, it is really amazing, the work that went into this. It is something else. I want you guys to just keep posted for it. It'll be up. Chitty chitty fang fang. It'll be up. I think I'm getting another part up today. But it is, if you want to understand the China strategy in a way that is easy to comprehend and digest, please keep your eye out for this ongoing series. Again, part 2 will be going up today. It'll be 4 parts. A lot of work went into this. Really good job by Stu and Larry here. Again, I know that I have been a little more quiet. I'm working on stuff, I promise you. I did also need a day off. And I actually need another day off. I really wish I could take one because things get so overwhelming. You just need to just veg out. And I understand that. And I understand how you guys all feel. And that New York law. Let me see here. Yeah. I don't really feel like I mean, I don't even know what to say. The courts are gone, especially, and they're gone. They're politicized. They're gone for the most part. And also, I am trying to dissect and understand so that I can explain it to you, because there's a lot of moving parts and pieces here. This lawsuit by Gomert suing Pence, which to me, when I first read it, it didn't appear that he had standing to sue Pence or jurisdiction to sue Pence. I think he should have sued the legislature or the House, but I'm not a lawyer. Yes, I am headed to DC on December 6th. I will be getting to DC on January. I will be there on the 5th. I will be there on the 5th, and I will be there on the 6th. And I will be there standing with all of you guys who are making the trip there. I hope to meet a bunch of you while I'm there. Keep fighting, because there's something to still fight for. And God bless all you guys. If you appreciate the work that I or Uncover DC does, you can find instructions on how to support us at the top of my Twitter page or in the description box below. As I've stated a number of times, the work that we do will always be free. I will never put content behind a paywall. If you so you can voluntarily contribute to support what we're doing. If not, you can consume the information just like everybody else does. And I think that's just very fair. I don't see how it's unfair. I really don't. So thank you guys so much for your support. You're wonderful people. And I will talk to you very soon.